Dhani watches a lot of television and movies. John does not. Listen in as she tells him about what she's watching, and he tries to make sense of it all. Welcome to Watching My Stories with Dhani and John.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Watching My Stories. I'm Dhani.
And I'm John.
And welcome back. See, I did it a different way before. See, we took so much time off, I think I forgot what we did.
Forgotten what we're doing here.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. I hope we've all recovered after last week's Endgame viewing.
Oof, took a while.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm over it just yet. But yeah. So we also went to Wednesday night. We went to Disneyland. They were having a special After Dark event called Heroes Assemble.
Yep.
So they had all of the Marvel characters out and you could take pictures with everyone. And the big deal was Iron Man because he's not usually there to meet and greet people.
Yep.
So they had a whole stage and he came out and he spoke in Tony Stark's voice and then people could go meet them. Now, we did not stand in line to meet anyone, but we did take pictures of people from afar. We're not about standing in line, but they had everyone. I mean, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Loki, Thor, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Black Widow. We didn't see Scarlet Witch anywhere.
Not officially.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of Scarlet Witches.
But then everyone at the park was dressed up.
Yeah, that was very cool.
It was really cool. We saw two amazing Thanoses.
Yes.
One that was kind of more in a mask type thing and like a rubber suit, and another guy who was just painted and had prosthetics on his face that...
I'm not certain they were... The poor guy kind of seemed to be like the size and shape of Thanos.
Yeah, he really did.
It was really kind of creepy.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the Guardians were there. It was and a lot of, female Thor, female Loki's, female Captain America's, I mean, everyone was there and everyone was representing, I think, everyone, which was really cool.
It was a nice mix of, a lot of people now have gotten the idea that, hey, you know what? I can be anything. I can be anyone.
Yeah. Kids dressed up. I mean, I got this picture, and I should post that picture, of we were walking along and Spider-Man came out, and he was walking down to his photo op, and this little boy, who had to be like 2 or 3, was dressed like Captain America, and Spider-Man just stopped, and he hugged him, and then he grabbed his hand, and the two started walking hand in hand down the way, and it was just so freaking adorable. Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and the dad's got about 15 feet to the side, filming it, going, "That's my kid. That's my kid."
Yeah, it was so cute. Oh my god, we were just like, that kid has the best life right now because he's gonna get to tell everyone he met Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, daycare the next day. I met Spider-Man. Well, not the real one. No, the real one.
The real one.
The real Spider-Man.
Yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, so we're still kind of basking in the Marvel Endgame glow, even if that glow is still tears. But anyway, I hope everyone's seen it. I don't know. I'm still waiting for someone to tell us the appropriate moment when we can start speaking about it in public and not worry about spoilers. Because we were out the other day and I started to talk about it, and then I thought, oh, no, there's people around us. Maybe we can't talk about it yet. So we'll see.
I think it's going to be pretty soon because there are a lot of stories I saw, online, USA Today and Entertainment Week, a bunch of places that had like full spoilers.
But then they say spoilers when they're talking about it. So, anyway, moving on. So the point of all of that is we were gone for about 3 weeks before that. And then last week we dedicated strictly to Endgame. And I have been keeping kind of a running list of anything interesting that I've seen over these now 4 weeks. So I have a long list. I actually had to go into a second page on my notes. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to do a lot of this really, really quick. And then in our Actors Corner this week, we chose Drew Barrymore, which was really difficult for me. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I had a very easy time.
I'm not
as
shocked.
Soon as you said...
get ready for Adam Sandler movies. Yep.
Okay.
We've done Adam Sandler, haven't we? Because he's doing SNL tonight. We should have done that.
Oh, I don't know.
Have we done Adam Sandler?
I don't know. I'm the wrong one to ask.
I know. That was a dumb choice. Anyway,
I can only remember like
that.
3 of them.
We'll save it for next week. I'll look it up, and if not, we'll do it next week.
I mean, I could do it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay. So, getting started. Movies first.
Everybody grab a hold of something, bite down hard, and let's give it hell.
Okay. First movie I saw was finally On the Basis of Sex, the movie with Armie Hammer and Felicity Jones about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her start into, well, her kind of, it starts when she's in law school and goes up until she gets to her first Supreme Court case. And then they kind of do a montage after that of all her cases and her nomination and stuff. So it was, so if first, I'm going to say first you should go see the documentary RBG, which is on Hulu. I think it's on Netflix. It's everywhere. The documentary is fantastic, and I would recommend everyone seeing that first.
Okay.
Then go and watch this. It was a very well done movie, and it was very nice to kind of see back. You know, they start in the beginning with, you know, she's one of 9 women at law school, and at one point they hold a dinner for these 9 women, like the dean of the school. And so he starts off giving this speech, like how welcome they are and how wonderful they must be to be these 9. But then he says, so now go around, tell us who you are, where you're from, and why you deserved to be here and you took a spot away from a man. And not in a like, good for you for taking a spot away from a man. It was, you know, what's wrong with you and how dare you take a spot away from a man. And yeah, so from the very beginning you're really irked. Like it's just very, because she's having to battle all that sort of stuff. Anyway, but what it focuses on and what I loved about the documentary, and here we see more, is her relationship with her husband, Martin Ginsburg. And he was a year ahead of her in law school, but that and it was apparent in the documentary, but in this, it was kind of, because we get to see someone portraying him, that he never wavered in his support of her. He always was telling people that she was the smartest person in the entire school. He was always backing her on anything she wanted to do. And when she left law school, she couldn't get a job. No one would hire a woman. And if they would, they already had hired one, so they don't need another one. So she literally went on tens of, you know, tens and tens of interviews, and that's what she was being told. Or she was told, you know, the wives of the other lawyers are jealous, and so they can't hire a woman because, you know, they would be jealous of her working there with their husbands and stuff. I mean, it's insane, right? But it's real. So anyway, so she goes to work, she goes to teach. Those who can't do teach. So she went to go teach, and she taught for quite a long time before finally, and she was always teaching the basis of sex laws and how discriminatory laws are against sexual basis. You know, and so she was always kind of in that fight. And then finally, her husband, who was a tax attorney, he found kind of a loophole where if she could argue, it was a man who a bachelor who took care of his sick mother. And he was denied the caretaker tax credit because it was only really made for women whose husbands died and they needed to go work and they had to hire caretakers. So this man was denied. So he brought it home to Ruth and said, you know, read this. And this was it, because now if she could go and argue that a man had been discriminated against, people are going to listen to this. And again, it was still really difficult. She went to the ACLU. They weren't really still in that fight. But she pushed forward and she got the guy to hire her, and they worked on this, and it's a very interesting process to watch this case come to life. And eventually they had to get to the Supreme Court. And, you know, it's great. It's for me, at least, I think it's a wonderful story to watch. I love the law. I love learning about this sort of thing. And it is really well done. It's very respectful to her family. This whole time, I mean, even in law school, she has a baby at home. And again, Martin's never, maybe you should just stay home with the kid. You know what I mean? Like, there's never a talk about that. And back then, can you imagine finding such a person, you know? And even he gets cancer when they're in law school. She goes to her classes. She goes to his classes, takes notes in his classes to bring home to him. He will then dictate his reports and his assignments to her. So she has to do her assignments. She's doing his assignments, going to both sets of school, and they have a baby at home. So come on, you know, it's pretty fantastic and awesome, really. There's a great shot at the end too, where Felicity Jones is walking up the steps of the Supreme Court, and they go behind a one of the pillars, and then there's the real Ruth Bader Ginsburg coming up the stairs, and it was just
nice.
oh, tears.
Yeah.
So anyway, loved it. I gave it 4 stars. Everyone in it's great. And definitely worth watching. And every female should watch, and have your daughters watch, and just learn how far we've come and how far we still have to go as far as all of these discriminatory laws.
Yeah, it's just very disappointing, and I understand completely listening to you talk about it. Guys, men, especially back then, like yesterday, are jerks and assholes. I mean, we are, but the decent, supportive guys are out there. It's really disappointing to hear you talk about this story, and the guy sticks out so much because he is supportive. And I understand that was a time.
It
and
was the
that's
time
kind of
he cooked. He came home. He went to work, and he came home and he cooked for the kids, and he took care of that sort of thing. Where she was just this work addict, especially once she got into this. She wasn't home. She was, and so it was like, but that wasn't. It was not a conversation. And even in the documentary, she talks about that. He was the only one who could get her to stop working, put some food in front of her, and get her to eat. And since he died, people have been quite worried about her because she'll stay up until 4 a.m. just reading briefs. And
she's like 3 feet tall and 60 pounds. I mean,
but she's fantastic.
She's barely there.
Yeah. So
and every time, when she falls or she moves wrong or something, half the country is like,
I need to rub her in bubble wrap.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody escort her across the street.
Carry her around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great, and it's a great story. Watch the documentary first, and then definitely see this too, because it's a great look into this first law that she was able to overturn.
Okay, cool.
Okay, next movie is a movie from Netflix called Someone Great. It stars Gina Rodriguez, who I love from Jane the Virgin, and Brittany Snow, who John loves from Pitch Perfect.
I think she's pretty great.
And the third woman is DeWanda Wise. So they're 3 best friends, like from college. They've been friends for 10 plus years. And this story is really about, all of them are about to turn 30 in the next year or whatever. And it's really about growing up and changing. You know what I mean? And how hard that is. And it's kind of a big thing. I think a lot of people at this age, we have these movies where that sort of thing comes out. But this was done in a really compelling way. And maybe it's just because I love Gina Rodriguez so much. But basically, she has been with her boyfriend for 9 years. She got a great job they all live in New York. She gets a great job at Rolling Stone magazine. She's a writer in San Francisco. And instead of trying the long distance thing, they break up. And so then it's this thing of she's leaving in a week. She wants to have fun with her friends one last time in New York. And during all of this, we have all these flashbacks of her and her boyfriend, who's played by Lakeith Stanfield. He was the great lead in Sorry to Bother You, which I know you didn't see, but it was a great movie last year. He's really good. And we see all these flashbacks of how they meet, their whole courtship, the whole thing of these 9 years, into where the last few years aren't so great. They had been changing. She works a lot, and he doesn't need to, and people growing up and growing apart just because they're changing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean they don't love each other anymore. You just aren't on the same path anymore. When you get together at 20 years old, at 29, you might not be on the same path. And I've always said this my whole life too, it's really hard to grow at the same rate as another human being.
Well, or grow in the same direction.
And grow in the same direction as well.
Sure.
And so I loved this movie because it tells that story in a really lovely way. And her heart's broken. And they go to this party, and the scene absolutely wrecked me. They're at this party, and she's drunk, and she's on Molly and all this stuff, and he's there, and she's like fighting her friends. I'm a grown-ass woman. I just need to go talk to him. And she sees him, and then she stops herself from actually going up to him. And she just starts crying. And it's Gina Rodriguez, and she's just brilliant. She's brilliant. I love her so much. And she starts crying, and she just mouths the words, "I love you," to him. And he says it back, and then she takes off. And it's kind of like it changes her perspective. All of a sudden, she realizes, you know what? We had a really good 9 years, and I'm thankful for that. But it is time to move on and change. And
just because you grow in different directions and it is time to move on doesn't mean you love that person any less.
Right.
You're not compatible anymore.
Exactly. You're going in different directions, and that's okay. And I think that's so important for especially these millennials to see that. And it's all three of them. You know, Brittany Snow's character, she was with this guy. He was one of the guys from SNL. And she had pictured this perfect little life for herself. And finally she realizes she hates this guy. She's like, I'm so annoyed with him or whatever. So she breaks up with him and realizes, oh crap, there goes my whole plan. That by the time I was 30, I was going to have this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. But then she's got to come to terms with that. And then the third, DeWanda Wise, she's a lesbian and she just is kind of a player and she doesn't really pay attention to work and blah, blah. So they have this big discussion with her about growing up because she like refuses to actually grow up. And she talks about how scared she is to do it. She's like, if I have to grow up, that means this and this and this and this happens. And that's also, I mean, again, at 29, a lot of people, struggle with that. Like all of a sudden, it's supposed to be the time I'm supposed to grow up. And so it was really kind of great to see these three stories of these three women who were just best friends. They had each other's backs through the whole movie. And Gina just carries it beautifully. Mm-hmm. And it was really lovely. It was a lovely, lovely movie.
Good.
I'm giving it 4.5 stars. And it's all because of her performance.
Okay.
She lights up a screen. I love it. I love her so much. And I think maybe I'm feeling nostalgia too because Jane the Virgin is ending soon. And so I'm not going to get to see her every week.
Okay.
So
and what was the movie called?
Someone Great. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
Okay.
Next movie is another Netflix movie called Unicorn Store. This was directed by Brie Larson.
Okay.
This was her first directing Captain Marvel. It was her first directing debut. And she stars in it with Samuel L. Jackson. And I love their relationship. They're just like best friends in real life. Like, it's just so cool.
Okay.
Like they've been in 4 or 5 movies together and they just love each other. So, her parents are Joan Cusack and Bradley Whitford. They're really funny.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, this is another coming of age movie, done in a very different way. So this girl that she plays, and I forget, I think it was Kit was her name. She just had always loved like rainbows and unicorns all her life. She was one of those that just always had the glitter and the sparkles and loved unicorns and wanted unicorns and that sort of kid, right?
Yep.
And it never went away. And she decided she wanted to be an artist and she went to art school and she was too that still. She put glitter on everything and all of that, and so she failed out of art school. It's actually kind of a lovely scene when she does it though, because what she does versus what everyone else does. And again, she wears pastels, like she's very much and she's I have to assume in the movie she's probably playing someone 22-ish, something like that.
I'm way too jaded with the world to not just laugh at that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
but it is cute because when you see kind of her project that she's working on, it's better than the other artists are all dressed in black and they do these dark portraits and
Sure.
But anyway, so she has to move home with her parents and she doesn't know what she's going to do, and she's just like lying on the couch and she's gotten a little jaded now of life sucks. And she sees a commercial for a temp agency and she goes and gets a real job, and she's wearing tan, like a suit of her mother's, and she still just doesn't know what the point of all this is. Mm-hmm. And she gets all these mysterious invitations to go to the store, and they have her name on them, and they're just popping up in her purse and under her keyboard and at her house and all this. So she goes to this address and there's Samuel L. Jackson in this lovely huge store, and he's got tinsel in his hair, and he says, I'm going to give you a unicorn, but you have to earn it. And he gives her all these steps to earn it. And what you end up figuring out, or at least this was my interpretation, and I think the point of this movie is that everyone can interpret it themselves. But like the first step is she has to build a home that's worthy of a unicorn. And so she goes out and she starts she gets some help and finds, builds like this little house in the backyard and all this stuff. And like she even like goes and buys hay and then dyes it an Easter egg dye, like pinks and blues, and like she's that kind of, she's so that person, right? Then she has to prove that she's financially secure to do that. So now she has this job, and she, you know, and she meets this guy along the way who helps her build the house, and so it's like each step though that she's being given is also a step that you have to do to grow up, right? So to me, I feel like that's the point of this, is that she's, whether or not you believe in the store, whether or not you believe that the unicorn's coming, she's somehow making moves that kind of force you to grow up in a way. Anyway, I don't want to give away the ending because it's kind of beautiful and wonderful, and she definitely comes to a realization, but it's really good. And for her directing, I really liked it because it was like the way she did with these lights and how pastel-y it was, and differences of things. And she really hates her parents. And that was that was the last step, was she was supposed to repair the relationship with her parents. And that was not really working for her. So there's a lot of just the inner turmoils and the growing up and figuring out how you're going to do certain things and what's really important to you and all that.
Sure.
It was good. I liked it. I'm only giving it 3 stars because it didn't really capture me. Like I wasn't like I kind of kept pausing it, and you know what I mean?
You wanted to like it more than you did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's great in it, which she's great in everything. Sam Jackson's great in it. Everyone in it was really good. It was just, the story for me, it didn't connect with me, and maybe because I'm definitely not that kind of person. You know, I think I grew up way too fast versus I was not arrested at all, you know, so.
Hate to break it to you, but you're not all pastel-y and tinsel.
No. Please, if you ever see a pastel on me, something has gone really wrong.
Somebody hit you with something.
Yeah.
You just haven't noticed it yet.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Unicorn Store on Netflix, and my cousin just said that her and her daughter watched it. So I think for girls, it's probably something interesting to watch too. I'd love to hear what younger girls think of it too, and how they interpret it. Okay, next movie is a documentary that's on YouTube Premium called Boy Band Con, and I have to talk about this because NSync is one of my top 2 bands of all time. And so this is the Lou Pearlman story. He was the manager of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and O-Town and, you know, whatever. And anyway, so I don't know if you remember. You probably didn't because you didn't pay attention to
I don't remember.
Bands.
Let's just assume I don't remember.
Yeah. Lou Pearlman was their manager, and he kind of founded them all and put these groups together. And then he ended up kind of not really stealing everything from them. They just weren't making any money. So at the time, I knew all of this because, of course, I was following NSYNC like insanely close. And, you know, they had top records and they were literally making no money. And it was the way he kind of finagled his accounting, where he would like take them out to dinner to celebrate a victory and then take that dinner out of what they would have been paid. You know what I mean? Like, if he flew them around the country, well, they were paying for that flight, not his record label. You know what I mean? So it was like they didn't know it until they got a check that was nothing, you know? So anyway, so Lance Bass kind of is behind this documentary, and it's really fascinating because there are things in there that I didn't realize because I was so focused on NSYNC, and I never liked Backstreet Boys, but it turns out that Lou, managing both, he kind of made them hate each other. And I had no idea that there was that infighting going on, but he turned each band against each other. So anyway, and you know, there's all kinds of other stories involved there, but he was just a trickster. It started before he got into that business. He was in the blimp business, and that didn't go, you know, he was definitely fooling a lot of people, and NSYNC had to take him to court. It was a big deal. What?
He probably fooled people into thinking there's such a thing as a blimp business.
Well, no, he actually, to his credit, like they were the first ones to get advertisers on blimps, like for games and events and stuff.
Really?
So, yeah. So there was some truth in some of that, but
Sorry, but it just sounds made up.
yeah.
I'm in the blip business.
Yeah. So, and he's
Okay.
got, so his old friends from school are on there talking about how he swindled everything from childhood all the way up. And it was a big deal when NSYNC took him to court and they had to, sever ties with him. It was a huge deal, but then that's when No Strings Attached came out and they held the record, for 14 years of the best. I think it was 14. It could have been 12. It was just a couple years ago. I think it was Adele's record that finally knocked them off of the head seat of the fastest selling most records in a week or whatever it was.
Okay.
It was insane.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm just bragging about my boys.
Yep.
Anyway, it's a really, really interesting documentary again, because, I love to see how these people function, and this guy really just tricked so many people and it's very interesting to me. There's a lot of good interviews on here with, people of all these bands and stuff. And then there's other pedophile rumors that some of the boys tell stories about and stuff. So there's a lot. And so he was finally, convicted, and he went to jail and died there. So,
Not exactly a happy ending.
No. So it's called Boy Band Con. If anyone cares about boy bands, or if anyone likes these sorts of deceitful stories or whatever, it's on YouTube Premium. It's totally worth it.
Is there such a thing as a girl band?
Yeah, Spice Girls.
Well, I never heard them called a girl band. I mean, the term boy band is kind of, you kind of know exactly what you're getting, but I've never heard the term girl band.
Yeah, England is huge on girl bands. That's a thing for them. Like they love,
like a group of teenage girls that sing.
Yeah, they love that. They go crazy for that. And we've gone through it. We've had a few here and there, but it's not, I think the reason it's not such a big deal is because boys don't follow around those bands like girls flock to boy bands. You know what I mean? So boy bands become a thing because the screaming girls are all over the place and all that. And honestly, girls are at the girl band thing screaming. You know what I mean? Like,
so the business model doesn't work for girls as it does for boys.
Right. Yeah, it's just not the same. For girl bands, it's more of, talent and looks and,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Next one, finally you get to participate, is a
hot
documentary we just watched on Netflix called Knock Down the House.
Yes.
So this is a documentary following 4 women that were running in the 2018 congressional race. So there was Cori Bush, who was running in St. Louis, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Paula Jean Swearingen, who was running in West Virginia.
Against Joe Manchin. Mm-hmm.
Amy Villela, who was running in Nevada.
Las Vegas.
And, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
So... Go ahead. I've been talking for a while.
Holy smokes. So I kind of, I don't know if you were going to watch it anyway, or you just put it on because I was there, but I just kind of happened into it. You were starting it when I was there, and I said, okay. And it was fantastic. It was really enlightening. I get the distinct impression that conservatives wouldn't like it so much. And unfortunately, and that's unfortunate because it's really a series of human stories. And to see each one of these, ladies' journeys, what got them started, what prompted them to do it, what was driving them, and what was really important to them. It was just, really, really enlightening. And just drove home what's really important in life, and how to go about it, especially if you're running for office.
Well, I think it drove home what was happening last year during this election, and the people who really did stand up to say, I'm going to run because of, and it wasn't just these 4, obviously we women got over 100 seats.
There's a lot.
But
it wasn't just women,
but all of them had, right. But all of them had reasons, of, this lawyer versus this lawyer, this white old lawyer versus this white old lawyer. Which one do I choose? It was the point of this last election was that normal, everyday people were getting into this race because they were sick and tired of the normal thing.
They were sick and tired of what was around them, what was happening to them, who was representing them. And every one of them was passionate about something. Right. I mean, extremely passionate.
Right.
Right. It's not like a typical politician that says, well, I think I'll run for office now.
Right.
Just because,
because of ego.
Because I want to get into politics, because I want power, whatever. For several of these, women, the power that they could have gotten by winning the election was kind of secondary. They really just wanted to further their particular cause that they were extremely passionate about.
Right. And it shows the grassroots movement as well, because all of these women were backed by grassroots movements nationally and locally, and having to get fundraising, having to go door to door, having to talk to people, having to explain themselves, and especially AOC, who had to really take on the incumbent who had been there for 14 years. And I think everyone now knows the story of that battle. But even though we know it, watching it and watching her and how she handled it during the campaign was very fascinating for me, because I love watching her now. I follow her on Instagram, and I love to see everything that's happening with her. But really seeing during this campaign and how she took it and ran with it, and how she answered things in small little town halls, town meetings that were so important to people. And I think this was that first time where we see this, and hopefully it happens again next year, where more people like this run. And I think then the voters will start to get used to, oh, I don't have to vote for the old white lawyer guy. I actually could take, some of these other people can actually do things for me.
Right.
But it's a really good behind the scenes look at campaigns, especially grassroots ones, and some aren't going to win. And that's more devastating for these people than most, just politicians who lose. But it was, I bawled and bawled and bawled probably for the last 20 minutes. I think I was crying through the whole thing. But it's really good. These are really great women who hopefully will continue to fight whatever they can.
Yeah, and the documentary was really well done.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I think I got out of it was how satisfying it is when you do something like this and you make a very conscious effort to stay true to yourself.
Right.
You don't give in. You don't buy into the super PACs. You just, whatever money you can raise, your grassroots organization, that's it. And you just have to get out there and work.
Right.
And that's what these people did. And, I think a lot of people look down on, one side looks down and picks on and is scared of AOC. And she is, I think I believe represents the future of politics. I think she's going to, I think the old white man is dying.
That was shown last year, yeah.
Right. And I think it's going to be much more like this, and just people buying into somebody who's just extremely passionate about something they can relate to.
But smart.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah. That's really the key is you don't have to go to law school now to be a politician. And I think that's an important thing to note is you can be smart. We know that now by looking at what's in the White House, but it was just really good. And it was a good reminder. And I think definitely over the next year and a half before the next election, watching it again, getting people to watch it again and remind yourselves of what it is we care about and I think the big thing is too, all these people were up against really long-term established people. And whether they won or lost, the point was so much was, yeah, but what has that person done for you? Like in all these communities, to hear a voter say, yeah, but he's got seniority and you know how much power that gives us? And that response of, but what is that power doing for you? What has he used that power for you?
Well,
how has he used it for you versus using it for himself? So it's a really good thing to keep in mind and to watch and enjoy. And
I hate to get all Lewis Black on you, but here's the irritating thing about politics in America right now. You've got one half of the nation that's supporting a guy who doesn't give a rat's behind about that.
That has nothing to do with the documentary, but yes, thank you. Oh, now he's mad. It doesn't. He's nowhere in that documentary, so that doesn't have anything to do with anything.
I know it was an observation about politics.
Yeah. We're an entertainment podcast. Okay.
Whatever.
So I give it 5 stars.
Me too.
Okay. It's called Knock Down the House on Netflix. Check it out. Okay, moving on to TV quickly. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend ended a few weeks ago, and I just haven't had the chance to talk about it. Love the show. It was on for 4 seasons. I think the first 3 seasons. Oh no, I actually think the last season is now on Netflix. It's a great show. Obviously, it's a musical show. They have a couple they're all original songs, funny songs. And they did a really good job of talking about mental health, because in the second season, I think she was diagnosed with
bipolar.
No. Oh gosh, I can't believe it. I should have written borderline personality disorder. Thank you. And so, it's funny and enjoyable, but then they also, talk about some serious stuff. And it ended, last week when we were talking about Endgame, and I was talking about series finales and that sort of thing, and how they can be so disappointing. This was not a disappointing end. It was ended perfectly, and then they did a live stage show afterwards so that they could show off all the talent of everyone, and that was wonderfully enjoyable. And I really loved the show, and so I just wanted to talk about it. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth it. Go check out the 4 seasons on Netflix. The next show is another one that ended over the last few weeks, called You're the Worst. It was on FX. This is also, they're now on Hulu. They had 5 seasons. This one as well ended wonderfully. I loved the finale. I loved the whole last season because it really kept me guessing. But the ending was perfect. It was perfect for them. They were, they were the worst, right? They were 2 horrible people that found each other. And from the very first episode, you wanted them to fall in love and be happy. And that's not really in their cards, but you went along for the ride so much. And again, talking about mental health, she had clinical depression that she had to fight so much of the time. And it was just a great show. All 4 leads were all just wonderful, and I'm gonna miss that show a lot because it was original.
Can you spoil it? I watched the first season and kind of lost interest, but can you spoil it for me? How did it end? Did they fall in love and get married?
They fell in love early on. I mean, you saw the first episode. They fell in love early on. And this whole last season was about their engagement. He had proposed at the end of the 4th season, so this whole last season was about them planning the wedding. And she was freaking out. Didn't seem like it was going to happen, and it didn't. On their wedding day, he realized that she was kind of horrible, and she realized she doesn't want to get married. And so, spoiler alert for everyone who I'm telling to go watch it, but they end up not getting married, but they stay together and they have a child. And they basically kind of leave their wedding and go to their favorite place to eat pancakes. And they kind of go, well, that's not for us. So what if we just make the choice every day? We wake up and we say, I'm choosing to be with you today. And that's what we see then that they've done.
Okay.
And it's just wonderful. So It was really, really good ending. Next show is Cobra Kai. The 2nd season just came out a couple weeks ago on YouTubePremium. This, if you guys don't know, is the show from Karate Kid. So it's Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka are back. The first season was just so wonderful. And the 2nd season was so great. I just saw yesterday they've been renewed for a 3rd season. And I'm so excited because the way they left it. So Billy Zabka still is kind of his, like, he grew up the same way you would expect him to grow up from the movie, right? He was the villain. And Ralph Macchio, Danielson, he kind of grew up the way you would expect him. He's all, successful and Billy Zabka, he opens up the Cobra Kai dojo again and gets kids in, and it's just like, I can't even explain it because there's so much going on, and there are so many flashbacks to the movie. There are so many Easter eggs in it. And this 2nd season, they brought back Kreese. So Sensei Kreese is back, which he's just he was the worst villain of all villains in the movie, and he's just as bad now. And the way it ends leaves it open for a really, really interesting 3rd season, and I can't wait. So if you loved Karate Kid, which I was kind of obsessed with it because I was so in love with Ralph Macchio, I used to pretend I was Elizabeth Shue wherever I would go. And she might be making, the very end of this season, she might be showing up. So yeah, I was obsessed with the movie so much, and this just, it takes me back, but it's also done in such a great way. And the second season focuses even more on the kids that they're training. So Danielson is all I can call him, opens up his own dojo, the Miyagi dojo, after Mr. Miyagi, because he still has his property and he has his whole thing. And so he teaches the kids the wax on, wax off, and painting the fence and all that sort of stuff. And so it's really the battle between the two dojos. And these kids actually are pretty amazing. In the second season, there's really conflict and drama between these kids, which I hate. But so anyway, it's on YouTube Premium. 2 seasons are on there. I think it's 8 or 10 episodes a season. They're only a half hour. So again, it's really easy watching. I watched the whole season in one day. But really fantastic. And I had posters of Billy Zabka on my walls, and he still looks as good as ever. I just, right back where I was when I was, I don't know, I was probably 9 or something. So anyway.
We'll hope so.
Yeah. Love the show. Cobra Kai on YouTube Premium. Next show I'm going to talk about is The Act on Hulu. This is this is 8 episodes. Come on, Roxy. Come on.
Studio Dog's here.
Yeah, good girl. Good girl, baby. The Act on Hulu is the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. This is a true story. There is a Netflix documentary about this story called Mommy, Dead and Dearest. Dee Dee Blanchard had Munchausen's by proxy syndrome, which means that she faked that her daughter was sick to get attention. So Gypsy Rose grew up in a wheelchair. Everyone thought she couldn't walk. She shaved her head all her life because she told everyone she had leukemia. Dee Dee shaved Gypsy's head, telling everyone she had leukemia. Took her to the doctor and made her have a stomach tube thing, stomach feeding tube. Told everyone that she couldn't eat on her own. And Gypsy believed this most of her life until finally she got old enough that she started testing it, and was like, I can eat something in the middle of the night, She knew she could walk, but she wasn't really allowed to walk that much, because even in the house, Dee Dee would say, someone could see you, get in your wheelchair. And so they would get money, right? All these charities and everything would give them money. They got a house built for them by Habitat for Humanity, because they were in New Orleans during Katrina, and so they lost a lot of stuff. So she just took advantage of everyone around her and ruined her daughter's life, like surgeries after surgeries after surgeries. And eventually Gypsy started getting a computer on her own, and at night she would start talking to people, and she met a guy that she thought she was falling in love with and asked him to kill her mom, and he did. So Gypsy is in prison now. She's serving 10 years. He's in there for life. But she's happy now. Like, if you watch Mommy, Dead and Dearest, she's like, I'm more free in this prison than I was living with her.
Yeah.
It's a really horrible story. But I've always been this all happened, I think, in 2014, something like that. So I've been fascinated with this whole story for these years. Documentary is fascinating. I would say watch the documentary first, called Mommy, Dead and Dearest on Netflix, and then go over to Hulu and watch these 8 episodes of The Act. And it's with Joey King is playing Gypsy Rose, and Patricia Arquette plays Dee Dee. And Patricia Arquette, man, she's just knocking stuff out of the what's it called?
The park?
Yeah, knocked stuff out of the park lately. Like the Ben Stiller show she just did. She won all those awards for, and she's really good in this. She's got a great New Orleans accent, and she's just so like,
yeah. Well, that's I'm not going to say the role is written for her, but I can easily see her in that role.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Oh. I don't really care for her.
Oh.
She's not my cup of tea. But I can see her doing that and knocking it out of the park.
See, in this, I really felt like she's transformed herself. Like, I don't see her in this at all. And when you're watching to see these behaviors that, again, no one was really there, right? No one was, I think they went off of Gypsy's stories a bit, but no one's inside the house. So they're taking a lot of license, because there are a lot of people who believe that Gypsy was in on it, and in a way she was, because she just listened to her mother, but she was also, tortured on her own and imprisoned on her own. So anyway, it's really interesting. It's on Hulu. Watch it. It's called The Act. It's a fascinating story, and really well done.
Okay.
Yeah. Next show I'm going to talk about is one that I just finished about an hour ago, called Dead to Me on Netflix, starring Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini and James Marsden. And I thought, when I always saw the advertisements for this, I thought it was a comedy. Like, I thought it was like a dark comedy of,
Just because you have three people can be funny.
Well, the way they were advertising it seemed like it
Really?
was kind of a dark comedy.
Okay.
And it's not so much, but it's really good and really wonderful. And I don't think I'm going to spoil anything necessarily because it comes out in the first episode, but Christina Applegate, we find out her husband had been killed 3 months before by a hit and run driver while he was running. And she goes to a grief group, and Linda Cardellini's there, and they kind of exchange numbers, and they start this friendship, which is really lovely because Christina's really lonely, and Linda's said that her fiance had died, so they're just bonding over this, and they're having late night wine, and then they go on trips, and they do, they're doing all this stuff together, and then we find out that Linda Cardellini's the one who actually hit and killed Christina Applegate's husband. So that begins then this kind of long string of stories in these 10 episodes. Again, it's 10 episodes. They're only a half hour long. So you're talking 5 hours of watching. But there's just stuff of James Marsden and his story with Linda Cardellini. And so they are Steve and Judy. And Christina Applegate her name is Jen. And it's Jen. She's got 2 boys to raise, and she takes Judy in, and Judy starts living with them. And so you're kind of always on edge because you're like, oh my God, is she going to find out that Judy's the one? But then there's all these other things going off, little branches of stories that are just intriguing and compelling. And honestly, by the time we get back to the 10th episode, it kind of all crashes in together. And it's a pretty big cliffhanger. You can see how it's going to go. I don't know if there's going to be a second season. I'm sure Netflix will announce sometime in the next few weeks, depending on how many people watch this. But it's really good. What I loved about this was that there are 2 40-something-year-old women helming this show, and they are total badass women, but always flawed and vulnerable and angry and sexy and like really strong when they need to be, they're really good characters, like really, really good characters. And that's what kept me going on the show, because it's their friendship, and yet we know that friendship could be pulled apart at any moment, but it's so true and loving and sisterly, and they're bonded, and so it's really good. And gosh, I was so into it, even though it was so different than what I thought I was getting into. So definitely check it out. It's Dead to Me on Netflix. It's out now. Check it out. It's worth it.
Okay.
And one more thing before we get into our Actors Corner. I just want to yell at Netflix for a second, because they have pissed me off by canceling Santa Clarita Diet, which is why we're doing Drew Barrymore today. I loved this show. We only got 3 seasons. It was not enough. I really wanted to see what happened next, because they left us with a hell of a cliffhanger. And I just loved it. And I talked about it on here before. The relationship between the married couple of Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant, it was just a lovely relationship. And even though they were in this weird circumstance where she was now undead, and they were figuring all that out, but watching these two and watching a couple that doesn't hate each other. I get so frustrated with these stupid couples that always bicker and call each other names, and that's funny, you know, like on Modern Family or Big Bang or whatever. It's like, it's always funny to make fun of the other person, or always funny to tear them down. And it's like, my favorite couples in history on television are the ones that don't do that, that always just get along and have fun and laugh and are friends. And that's what these were. It was really that. And this whole last season was, she was questioning whether, she asked him, would you become undead with me so we can live together forever? And that's a thing, you know, there's love there. And it was hysterical. It was so funny and so good. And I think that people looked at the undead zombie thing and they just didn't want to watch the show. But you had to look past that to see everything else that was there, because that really wasn't the point of the show. It was really funny, and it made for some really funny times and instances and circumstances. But it was a really good show, and so I'm angry with Netflix about that. Obviously not enough, because most of what I just talked about was on Netflix. But I just wanted to point that out. So if you're looking for a show to watch, go check out Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix. It's worth it. It's so funny and entertaining, and it goes by really quick. So there's that.
Okay.
So moving on now to our Actors Corner.
All right.
We're going to do Drew Barrymore. This was really difficult for me. I mean, we're the same age. Well, she's about a year older than me. And so I've literally grown up with her and loved her from E.T. on. I mean, this was really, and actually seeing everything in a row here, you know, we grew up together. So it was like her, when she finally got to the stage where she was playing this type of person, that's where I was in life. And then when she got to this stage, it was like, it was kind of, you know, you go through life.
Watching a friend perform your whole life.
Yeah.
I get that.
I would be really good friends with her if I could. So
I get it.
You know. Okay, so you start movies you love.
Okay, I got it down to 3.
I got it down to 3, which I could have 10 on each line.
Well, and you've already let the cat out of the bag, because they are all Adam Sandler movies. Yeah. But that's when I think, for me, I think she's at her best.
I know.
So, you know, The Wedding Singer, saw that in my formative years, and I think that'll always be me, you know, one of my favorites.
Julia Gulia.
Yep. Oh my God.
See, I'm not a huge fan of her character in that movie. Like, I love the movie, but her character isn't why I love the movie.
So to me, that was the first time that we got to see their chemistry.
Well, yeah, it was.
And
that was her first movie together.
I know.
Oh,
so
you said to me. I mean, it's a fact.
Well, it is the first time we got to see their chemistry, but there was instantly chemistry there, and that's what I liked about it.
Okay.
I didn't really care for her character really that much either, but I didn't really care for his either. But the movie just worked, and to me, it's a classic. I love it.
Okay.
Blended.
Yes.
Which is them, you know, more mature but just as funny and very sweet. There are a lot of very sweet parts of that movie.
Yes.
And 50 First Dates.
Yes.
Which is, you know, right between those two.
Right. Well, it is. So in chronological order, it was Wedding Date, 50 First Dates, and then Blended.
Yeah.
And so you saw them as really young characters, as people who were, you know, 20s, kind of dating, and then grown-ups with children.
Yeah. I kind of meant emotionally. It's a good in between in that, you know, the Wedding Singer is new and exciting. You're seeing them for the first time together, and there's obviously chemistry. Blended is kind of like old hat, and then this is in between those two.
Oh, okay.
Emotionally to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have Blended under my like column. I think out of those 3, that's my favorite of theirs, and it's weird because it's the least popular one. But I think, again, people need to go and watch it because it is super sweet. I still cannot watch the ending without crying.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely story. It's very true to, like, you know, parents who are divorced or widowed or whatever the case is, having to restart life and date again, and your kids need to like them, and you know, there's just a lot of that, and yet it's super funny because, of course, it's one of his movies, and I love, and it does feel like when you watch the 3, we do see the 2 of them grow up together. So to see them as these parents with children, which is that stage of life now, it was just great, and I love Blended out of all of them.
Okay, good. What are the other two?
Oh, that was on my like list. So movies I love.
Oh.
E.T.
Yep.
Come on. This was so hard for me, and I'm probably going to regret it later. But I have a ton of honorable mentions, so we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Boys on the Side. What I started to do was to think, let me take one from each kind of era, and because she changed so much, and Boys on the Side was kind of that return phase after she had gone to rehab and gone off. And again, her book was so great. I remember reading that in middle school. So she went through a journey, and this was kind of her first kind of return. And Boys on the Side is just one of the best movies. Whoopi Goldberg and her is just great. So there's that. And then Ever After, which I'm not a princess person, but this was that Cinderella movie where first off her name is Danielle, and secondly it was the first time I saw her save herself as far as the princess goes. So she's captured, and this guy wants to marry her, and he's got her in shackles, and she grabs a sword and she gets herself out of it. And Prince Charming, the prince, rides up to the castle to save her just as she's walking out on her own because she saved her own ass. And I was just like, yeah. And this was kind of her first foray into producing as well. And so she started a long string of female heroines, and this was one of the first ones. And I just love the movie so much. It's a little switch, and that opened my eyes a lot.
Very cool.
Okay, movies you like?
E.T.
Okay.
Yep. Fever Pitch.
Yes.
Yeah. And Music and Lyrics.
Yes, Music and Lyrics is on my list as well under classic. Can't go wrong with Hugh Grant and her.
Well,
I mean, they're kind of king and queen of romantic comedies. And the same with Fever Pitch. I watch it so much, and that's on my secretly love column. I don't know why. It's just, but that also felt like she was around 30 in Fever Pitch, and it felt like it was one of those first characters that she played where she was a professional and kind of grown up, and again dating this guy who's not grown up yet. And again, it was just a different stage of her professionally, because again she did produce that, as well as another romantic comedy that just was so good. Yeah. Okay, under my so I had Blended, Music and Lyrics, and Never Been Kissed, which Josie Grossi is an iconic character. There's no doubt about it. And I loved how when the movie was coming out, she was always saying she's much more Josie Grossi than she is anything else she's ever played. And it's just a lovely movie. It's just so wonderful because so many of us are that. And that's how we felt, and it's how we always feel. And and Michael Vartan was his first movie, and it was just wonderful.
I agree. It's on for me somewhere.
Movie use hate. Movies use hate.
I really hate riding in cars with boys.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
When have you seen that?
I think you and I saw that when we first got together.
I don't think so.
I do.
I would remember that.
I did not.
I love that movie.
I do not care for that
Steve
movie.
Zahn is wonderful in that movie. She's fantastic. It's a great story. Brittany Murphy. I watch it a lot.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
True story.
I did not care for it at all.
Okay.
You?
That's it?
Yeah, it's the only one I don't like.
So I don't hate them. I didn't enjoy Lucky You, her and Eric Bana, and I think it's because it's like poker or gambling or whatever. Yeah. Not my thing. And I don't, even though I watch it probably often, I don't enjoy Duplex, her and Ben Stiller. It's just, it's a little over the top for me, but I still will stop and watch it. So I don't know what that really means.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Movies you secretly love.
Never Been Kissed.
Okay.
And Charlie's Angels.
Okay. We're going to get into it now because first off, that's the first on mine is for the 1 and 2 Charlie's Angels. And I think I like the second one better than the first one.
Yeah.
But we have a fight about these movies. Every time I want to watch them, you diss them.
So I do because the movies are ridiculous.
Yes, that's what's so great about them.
Well, it turns out in my mind that's what makes me secretly what I secretly love them because of the relationship between the three girls.
Yes.
That's what I like. They always have each other's back. They're kick-ass. That's what I loved about this whole thing, and I wish they had done a third Even
one.
if they do stuff that's not physically possible, they still kick ass.
Right. But if you watch Mission Impossible, if you watch any of the James Bond movies, if you watch any of that stuff, they're all physically impossible. But men are doing it, so that's okay.
No,
that's exactly what it is. You know it.
No, that's not exactly what it is.
But what was great about these movies was Drew was she was vehement that they were not going to have guns, and I loved that about it.
Okay.
They kicked ass on their own. All three of them were wonderful, and I love Lucy Liu. She just got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame this week, and both of them were there, so the trio was back together, which is just wonderful. And yeah, it was that, but she was also like, we're also going to show you us eating all the time. Like she wanted to stamp out any kind of stereotypes. So they go through the drive-thru, they order shakes and burgers and fries, and like there was all that sort of stuff that women can be really cool.
Yep.
Kick ass and be normal and be friends and like each other, which is a big deal.
I would really, really like the movies if it weren't for like the half dozen times during each of them I went, what? And they're small parts, they're small pieces, but they just kind of...
They aren't going to surf down a piece of rope on a piece of board. I get that. But it's really cool when you watch it, and I love it, and I'll take it.
That's fine. And that's what... that's what makes the world go round, is differences
but that's
of
why,
opinions.
and they're all funny, and like I love that they're all super smart.
They are,
but then like socially awkward.
Yes.
So much,
and they're
great.
super smart. They're funny. They're everything you like, except a little bit too a few too many.
Blah blah blah. But Tom Cruise can hang on the side of an aircraft carrier, or whatever it is. Whatever that big plane is, and it takes off in flight, and he just hangs on by his hands.
No, that's ridiculous too.
Well, right. So
I'm equal opportunity when it comes to ridiculous.
You're not.
I am
entirely.
I am.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, but here we go.
What else? Secretly Love.
That's it. Just the two. Never Been Kissed and Charlie's Angels.
Okay. I wish they had done a third. There's a new TV show coming out with a female Charlie.
I think I knew that.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? Regina Hall is playing Charlie. I forget. Anyway. Okay. So Secretly Love. I've got Charlie's Angels 1 and 2. I think I love the second one more. Grey Gardens. I love the documentary Grey Gardens. So when they were coming out with the movie, I was a little apprehensive because who can really do it well enough than the real people? And she was fantastic when she does the military march and all that, and she got the accent down and she got the movements down, and it was she was Little Edie.
Yeah.
She was Little Edie.
She was.
Yeah.
The thing I don't care for about that, and it's because it's like a slow motion car crash that the driver and the passenger aren't in on. They don't know what's happening, but everybody's
that's exactly
standing.
the documentary.
Well, that's
the point.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And to me, that always makes me feel a little oogie that it's like a whole movie that's making fun of these two people that don't know they're being made fun of.
Right. But there are glimpses where they do, and that's why it's
it's compelling
because she's like, she says it, anyway, I don't want to get into the Grey Gardens discussion.
Okay.
Next one, Firestarter. I mean, man, when I was a kid, how many times did I try to give looks and start fires?
What do you mean when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You did that to me about 20 minutes ago.
I loved that movie so much as a kid. And I have fever pitch under Secretly Love.
This isn't a politics show.
Sorry. Okay. And movies you haven't seen?
Firestarter.
Oh my gosh, you haven't seen?
No,
that doesn't surprise me.
It shouldn't.
Oh, it's good.
I've heard it's good. I know it's from...
I probably haven't seen it in about a year.
It was like 2 years after she did E.T.
Yeah.
So, I've heard it's really good. I just... Yeah.
Okay. And anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. I've seen everything. And adding to your watch list?
I'm saying I'm adding it to my watch list. I'm still not really thrilled about it. But because you like it so much, I will probably give it a chance at some point in Santa Clarita Diet.
I really think you'd like it. You just need to do it.
I watched the first one or two, and I just it didn't hold me.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't have anything to add to my watch list. I'm just going to go through my honorable mentions. Irreconcilable Differences. Great movie. Tearful. Love it. Cat's Eye. Oh, so good. Poison Ivy was kind of when she was teenager going through her issues. But I love that movie. Amy Fisher Story, hers was my favorite Amy Fisher Story. Remember, there were like 3. I think Alyssa Milano did one. Oh, and who was the third person? They were all on, each network had their own Amy Fisher. Yeah. Hers was my favorite. Bad Girls with her and Mary Elizabeth Masters Antonio. Was it her or was it the other one? No, it wasn't her. It was the other one. They're 4 cowgirls. Again, this was kind of in her comeback.
What's the name of it?
Bad Girls. It's a Western and they kick ass. It's so good.
Okay.
Mad Love, her and Chris O'Donnell, and she's, you know, a little, she's got some mental health issues. Oh, it was so romantic though, you know, especially back then. It was just like, oh my God.
Where
so
has
romantic.
he been?
He's on NCIS LA.
Oh, that's right.
Everyone Says I Love You. Woody Allen musical. Of course, I'm going to love that. Scream, her intro to Scream. So all 3 Screams have great cold opens, but hers is the best. And if I can come in just on the beginning of that movie too, and just watch her part, it's the best.
Okay.
Wedding Singer said Home Fries was cute. Enjoyed it. Riding in Cars with Boys. I love.
Nope.
50 First Dates.
Yep.
Going the Distance, her and Justin Long, and they were dating at the time.
That was a good one.
It's good. Charlie Day and Jason Sudeikis rounded out. Oh, Christina Applegate, Jim Gaffigan. It's a good movie. I really like
love
that.
Charlie Day.
Big Miracle, the whale
thing
that's
with
another
John
one.
Krasinski. Oh. So that's another one I want to add to my list.
You haven't seen it?
I only saw a little bit of it.
Oh my God. It's such a tearjerker, so it's really hard. And then recently, in the last couple of years, there was Miss You Already, her and Toni Collette. Oh my God. It's a modern day Beaches. So her and they're best friends since childhood. Toni Collette gets breast cancer and it's their journey through that whole illness and everything. And it's just, oh my God, it's such a tearjerker.
Well, that's fun.
But it's really good.
Jesus.
And it didn't get enough recognition, and both of them are fantastic in it. And it's a lovely, again, female friendship story, and family and all of that. And then my last thing, of course, was to talk about Santa Clarita Diet, which I did. So there we go.
Oh, take a breath.
Yeah, that was a lot today. I loaded everyone up with a lot. So I think that's it. Next week is definitely going to be a smaller week because I can't watch that much in this week.
Yeah, last week we did talk about going to see
Long Shot.
Long Shot today, and we did not make it.
Yeah, we were wiped out after Disney and all that. So hopefully we'll see something.
We're old. It takes us a couple days to recover now. Yeah. So
yes.
Sad but true.
Sad but true. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking in this week. We appreciate it. And we will be back next week with something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Until then, I'll be watching my stories.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.